Hi, I'm Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum, and today we're going to be talking about similarities and differences between depression and autistic meltdowns and/or autistic burnout. I'm going to be using those interchangeably. This topic has become very important to me because I have heard many stories from people in the community who have been wrongly treated for depression whenever really they were just in an autistic meltdown. And those two things are treated and managed very differently. In my opinion, it can literally save lives to know the difference between these two things. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video. I'm going to be sharing one of my favorite sensory-friendly products that helps me regulate when I'm in an autistic meltdown. It also has been helpful when I've experienced bouts of depression, so make sure you stick around to find out more information about one of my favorite things. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I think you'll find that this is a very accepting and kind community. The best way to get plugged in is to leave a comment below and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with the latest resources. As I said, I'm Taylor. I'm a 34-year-old mom who was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 31. Totally changed my life, gave me the vocabulary and a deeper understanding to better support myself and enjoy my life. So I started this channel as a way to help other adults on the autism spectrum know how to navigate our unique life. So let's jump right in. I created an infographic to kind of help us navigate this topic today. So if you want to access that, I've put a link in the description so you can pull it up on your computer, or I'll put it here on the screen so that you can see it. Disclaimer, I am not a medical provider. I'm not a medical professional. Nothing in this video constitutes medical advice. If you are looking for medical advice, you're not going to find it on this channel. Please seek a qualified medical healthcare provider for medical advice. What I'm sharing today are takeaways that I have from my own experiences and my own research as an autistic mom of 2 autistic children. So let's go ahead and start with the similarities, because I think this is the reason we need to have this conversation. There are so many similarities between depression and an autistic meltdown. We'll start at the top of the list. Change in appetite. This can happen with both meltdowns and in depression. With meltdowns, for me, it tends to be more of a sensory experience. I'm already overwhelmed with the intake I'm getting through my senses, and so food becomes harder to eat in a lot of circumstances. I usually have to stick to only my safe foods, and if you're on the spectrum, you probably understand what safe foods are. Things that typically always sound good and taste okay to you. When you're depressed, your taste buds register taste differently, and food might not have the same flavor as it does when you're not depressed. So that's going to affect your eating habits as well. Second thing on the list is fatigue. With both experiences, you're probably going to feel more tired than usual. For me, with meltdowns, it feels like mental fatigue, like decision-making fatigue. I think with depression, when I've experienced it before, it's been more of like a bodily fatigue. I don't want to move. I'm just very tired and sluggish. And if I had to choose with a meltdown, I would say it's more of like a mental fatigue, exhaustion that also affects my body, if that makes sense. Next thing on the list is feeling worthless or guilty. So with meltdowns, I know that there can be feelings of shame and worthlessness because you're not able to do anything, and we're so conditioned to be productive that we feel guilty. We might feel ashamed. We might feel worthless because we're not accomplishing anything. Those feelings can be very similar to what you might feel if you're experiencing depression. Next on the list, I covered this a little bit, difficulty thinking and or making decisions. Our executive functioning skills are inhibited whenever we're experiencing either depression or autistic meltdowns. Both of these things typically can improve whenever you care for yourself, whether that's exercise, getting outside, nourishing yourself with healthy food, with water. Those typically make both of these things better, but that's pretty self-explanatory. Self-care is going to make most things in life better. And then lastly, feelings of overwhelm. If you're in a meltdown, for sure, you're feeling overwhelmed. If you are depressed, you're probably feeling overwhelmed with just whatever life is throwing at you. It's too much all the time. It's very hard to deal with. Let's go to the depression column now. So with depression, part of the clinical diagnostic criteria for depression is that you have to have persistent feelings of sadness or a depressed mood for at least 2 weeks. Okay, that's not something that you're going to find with an autistic meltdown. That's not part of the criteria. Usually depression is going to improve by cultivating your sense of self-esteem and finding ways to reintegrate back within your community and in social settings. That is not the approach that you want to take with an autistic meltdown. Most likely you're going to need time away from social settings in a private, quiet environment. We'll get to that in a second. Third in the depression column is that medication can be helpful. Again, this isn't medical advice, but when you're reading about, learning about depression, you'll see that a lot of times one of the recommended treatment plans can be to get on medication to help with mood support. I'm not recommending it either way, just telling you what information is out there. The next one on the list, I put this on there. This is something from my own experience that I feel is important to dealing with depression depression, it's that it can be helpful to process the emotions associated with the root cause. So with depression, I think generally speaking, you're going to see it stem from an overwhelming emotional experience that has long-lasting effects. Okay, so the example I put on here is grief from loss, right? If you go through life never processing that grief, never making time to actually feel the ramifications of that in your life, you're going to hold on to that depression for a lot longer than you need to because you're not processing it, right? It's living in your body. And there's actual science behind that. Check out The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk for more information. I wrote in the Meltdown column, we're doing this a little bit out of order, I'm sorry, I hope I don't break your brains. I don't feel like it's personally necessary to understand the root cause of your meltdown in order to move past it. Most of the time, it's just a sensory regulation thing, and we'll get to that in a second. Back to the depression column. Depression can often be accompanied by thoughts of suicide. You don't typically find this with autistic meltdowns. I'm not going to say never. Meltdowns can sometimes lead to depression. Okay, so sometimes there's a mix of all of this in there and it can be hard to differentiate, but typically if you're having thoughts of suicide, that would more closely be linked to symptoms of depression than autistic meltdowns. And then the last one on the list here, no or low interest in things that regularly bring joy. So maybe picture someone stuck in bed, they can't get up, nothing sounds fun at all, they're not interested in doing anything. I would say for me with an autistic meltdown, it's not that I'm not interested in doing things, I feel like I can't do them. Like I don't have the emotional capacity or the executive functioning available to do things, but I still want to do things. I still want to pursue my special interest. I still want to do things that bring me life and joy. I just feel like I can't. And with depression, I've been there before. It's like there's no desire there at all to do anything that used to give me joy. It's just kind of like, I don't want to do anything and I'm going to stay here forever. Moving on to the autistic meltdown column, autistic meltdowns can be caused by too much masking and or sensory overwhelm. So masking in a nutshell is when we cover up things that are important to us. We cover up our wants and our needs. We copy other people's social expressions, vocabulary, use of language in order to become more socially acceptable and appropriate. That's exhausting, right? And too much of that is going to shut us down. Also sensory overwhelm. The lights are too bright. If there's too many noises that are upsetting to us, too many people talking at once, all of those things can increase the possibility of entering into an autistic meltdown or shutdown. As I mentioned earlier, a meltdown can progress into depression. It can be the start of a depressive episode if you're not taking the steps that you need to regulate yourself. So again, that's so important why we talk about the differences between these two things so that we can differentiate and know how to approach each one and hopefully also prevent meltdowns from becoming depression if we have the right tools to take care of ourselves. The third one on the list here is that stimming can provide some relief. Stimming is a very regulatory practice for people on the spectrum, and when you're in meltdown, there tends to be a lot of pent up energy in the body. You might feel this sense of restlessness or being claustrophobic, and in order to move that energy out, it's very natural for us to want to stim. And I have a whole video over stimming if you're interested. I'm just now relearning the art of stimming because as a late diagnosed adult, I think a lot of times we suppress our stims because we learn that they're kind of upsetting to other people at a young age, but there's a reason we do it. It's to regulate our nervous system, and it can provide some relief in an autistic meltdown. Meltdowns are usually improved by nurturing your inner world. So this is in contrast to what I shared earlier about depression, where, let's focus on building your self-esteem and reintegrating you in your community and your social circles. That's not quite the approach that you want to take with autistic meltdowns. This is going to be more about focusing on your inner self-reflection. What do you need in order to feel met and supported? How do you need to regulate yourself? Is it being alone? Probably so. That's a big difference between depression and meltdowns, which leads right into the next one on the list. Alone time tends to make things better. I think you'll typically find that with depression, if you spend a lot of time alone, it's going to make things worse. Okay. But with autistic meltdowns, there's usually a point you can get to where you've spent enough time alone. It recharges your battery enough to where you feel like you have more spoons. If you're familiar with spoon theory, I'll put a link to a video for spoon theory, which can be helpful. You can recharge enough to have more spoons to help you reintegrate back into your social circles. So there's a bit of a difference there. Next on the list is that medication is not typically a recommended treatment for autistic meltdowns. I've never heard of that. I'd be really skeptical if anybody tried to push medication on somebody in an autistic meltdown. Again, that's not medical advice. I don't know your situation, but I've not heard of anybody recommending medication for someone in an autistic meltdown. And then last on this list, I addressed it a little bit earlier. It's not necessarily about addressing the root cause of an autistic meltdown, but rather focusing on sensory regulation. So if I came home from a school function with my kids and I'm totally dysregulated and I lost my words and I feel like my skin's crawling and I'm overwhelmed with sound. I don't necessarily have to go back and retrace my steps and think, oh, whenever Susan was talking to me, she brought up this and that really triggered me because of XYZ. I don't necessarily have to go back and do that. I just need to find ways to regulate my nervous system. Stem, be alone, drink water, maybe go for a walk, take a bath, pet my cat. It's less about the root cause and more about regulation. So to close this up here, whenever I've been talking to some of you in the community, just having the knowledge of knowing how to differentiate between these two experiences, it can make a whole world of difference. Because when somebody's treating you as depressed and internally you're thinking, that just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't feel depressed, but maybe I am because I don't have energy and I can't get out of bed. It's so confusing, and it adds more to this cognitive mental load of trying to figure out what the heck is going on. But if you know that you're not dealing with depression and that this is an autistic meltdown, now you've got tools. You can stem, you can regulate, you can do yoga, you can go outside, you can pet your cat, you can take a bath. If it is depression, that might be a signal for you to go see a medical provider and get some more professional help to help you through this particularly challenging time. So just knowing the difference between these two, having the awareness around it, can create an immense shift in your energy. And sometimes that makes all the difference. I'm not saying that that's the cure, but I'm saying sometimes just having the right awareness to bring to a situation, it can give you a feeling of empowerment and it can make you feel like there's a way forward. So I hope this diagram helped you feel a little bit more empowered today. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to add to the list. First, before you go, I want to share this product that I was talking with you about. So with both depression and autistic meltdowns, sleep can be a very useful thing. Sleep is always helpful, but particularly with these two experiences. I'm very particular about sleep, and I have to have certain things certain ways in order for me to actually sleep. And one of those certain things being a certain way is my sleep mask. Now, I've actually worn it so much that the logo has fallen off of it. But this is a Manta sleep mask. This is the weighted sleep mask. It's my absolute favorite. This is their standard one. The cool thing about their products is that they're interchangeable. So you can take the eye cups off and you can place them on other products. Look at these eye cups, okay? There's a hole inside so that whenever you blink, it doesn't rub up against anything. Isn't that genius? Like, so simple, so genius. The material that these are made out of is like your favorite t-shirt from college that you've washed 400 times and it's barely holding on. It's so perfect. It's so soft. There's Velcro in the back. People have asked me, does it work for side sleepers? Yes, I'm a side sleeper. It stays on during the night. It's not too tight. It's adjustable. Again, the weighted one is my favorite just because it provides a little bit of extra sensory comfort. Weight tends to be very calming and comforting to me. They also on their website have cups you can put on here that are cooling cups. Like you can put them in the fridge or the freezer and then put them on here and sleep with them that way. Really great if you have allergies or just puffy face going on in general. There's also heated cups that you can put on there. You put them in the microwave and then put them on the band, and you can use that when you have a headache. Check out their website. I think you're going to love their products as much as I do. I have an affiliate link in the description. If you use the code MOM on the spectrum, it'll get you 10% off your entire purchase, and some of the proceeds will go back to the channel. So as always, just know that you're not alone. Your brain is unique and it's beautiful and it's worthy of respect and admiration. You are not messed up. You are such a beautiful, incredible human being. You're worthy of being known and understood and loved and appreciated. And I hope that together we can learn how to do that better for ourselves and for each other. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this video if it was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.